What is up, everybody? How you doing tonight? This is the Token and Hobbs show on the Think Liberty Network. I am your host, Mr. Token, and I am joined with my partner in crime, Mr. Congressman Dustin Hobbs. What is up, my man? I just missed everything you just said. I'm afraid. Oh, you guys don't know. Hobbs' internet is kind of shitty. It comes from living out in the middle of nowhere, which is, to be fair, all of Nebraska is kind of in the middle of nowhere, but especially out where he is.
It's the corn. The corn is like an RFID blocking Faraday cage.
I mean, around every turn, Nebraska just finds a way to kick me in the ass. And now it was the snow this week. Now it's the corn messing up your Wi-Fi connection. That's it's no good, man. But there shouldn't be any corn left. What's up with that? The farmers didn't get all that corn out of the way yet?
Oh, no, corn is eternal.
Corn is eternal. It never goes away. I mean, between the corn, the snow, the cold, the football team being a little piece of shit, Nebraska doesn't seem to offer very much anymore right now. So that's sounding. Dewey says Texas thinking about secession. That could be a topic. I suppose it could be. Right? We've talked about the potential of secession before. I think we said that it would not be the worst thing in the world to see the country split up into a few different states and they call it good, go their own separate ways, so long as it's nonviolent and doesn't result in the Civil War, because that's worst case scenario stuff right there. That's not what we want to see. We'd rather see a peaceful dissolution of the country if necessary, and we'll see if that's necessary.
Bloodless balkanization.
Exactly. Like when the Soviet Union split up, there wasn't a big giant civil war or ethnic cleansing or anything like that. Unlike with the former Yugoslavia breaking up, wasn't exactly the most peaceful and amicable split in the world. Right? So we'll have to see how that goes. But anyway, we got a great show for you guys tonight. Thank you very much for joining us. We have a lot that we want to talk about. What do you want to talk about first, Hobbs?
Well, I sent a funny little story. It shouldn't take too long to talk about. Of apparently some, I guess what you would call blue on blue violence.
Oh, the ATF story.
Yes,
that's a fun one.
This one just makes me laugh. I just wanted to talk about it. It comes out of Columbus, I believe Columbus, Georgia. And
you broke up right there.
God damn it! All right, all right. So it's funny because an ATF agent.
Do you want me to read a little bit from the article?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So yeah, this is from the Columbus Dispatch, and it goes: an agent with the Bureau of Alcohol and Tobacco and Firearms has filed a federal lawsuit accusing two Columbus police officers of using excessive force against him while he was working in his official capacity. Agent James Burke, a 16-year veteran of the ATF, said in the lawsuit that he was working a routine assignment on July 7th. That afternoon, he went to a home on blah, 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 near Dublin to retrieve a shotgun from someone who was not permitted to have a firearm. The article does not go into detail about why this individual was not allowed to own a firearm. But anyway, the lawsuit says Burke was in his normal work attire, which he described as casual professional, with his credentials in a pocket and an ID card around his neck. When he knocked on the door of the home, a person inside called 911 and read the dispatcher's Burke's number while refusing to open the door. So basically what happened is the police show up to the scene, and instead of looking at the guy and being like, oh, you're ATF, go about your business, they decide to challenge him, pull a gun at the guy, point it at his face, challenge him to the ground, put him in handcuffs, and then drive him over to the precinct, where they then decide to show the video to every other officer there, presumably for a laugh.
Yes.
I can only assume that the reason that they would show this body cam footage would be to laugh at the fear in the ATF officer's face.
Right. Now, the place that I got this story is a guy called Matt Bracken. He's former Navy SEAL. He's author of a series of books called Enemies Foreign and Domestic. And it's a story.
It's a story about what?
Government commits a false flag mass shooting event at a sports stadium and then uses it in the United Nations.
We have to do something about your internet, dude.
Yeah.
Or you have to do something about it, not me.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So anyways, what this looks like to me is local law enforcement telling the feds to fuck off, which has been a long time coming.
Absolutely. I mean, it's kind of funny. First of all, I find it kind of ironic that they have body cam of this. Like, how many controversial police shootings have we seen where there's just magically no body footage available of any kind? Apparently, it's just, oh, we had it off. Sorry, my bad. I didn't have it on at the time. But here, when they're fucking pranking this ATF agent. Oh, yeah, they made sure to record that shit.
And they tased him, too.
They tased him, too?
That's what it says in the article. It says they tased him like 4 times.
Oh, fuck yeah. Here's the thing about it. The ATF is not an organization that should exist, and it has no legitimacy whatsoever as far as I'm concerned. So, yeah, if a bunch of local cops want to mess with an ATF agent and piss him off and make him cry and tase him and then laugh about it, yeah, I've got no problem with that.
Yeah, and this is back to the argument that we've made on this show before about the supremacy of local law enforcement, and especially the county sheriff being an elected position, to where if the feds come in and try to engage in any of these unconstitutional gun confiscations or anything else that violates local and state law, as per the 10th Amendment, then local law to say, no, turn your happy fed asses back around and go back to Washington. We've got this covered.
So he's now suing the officer that did this for excessive use of force. I mean, he did have a gun drawn on him, so I can see why he would be a little bit peeved off about that. And apparently he was tased as well. And that shit hurts. That's not,
yeah.
Being tased is no joke. That shit hurts a lot.
I assume that you had it happen to you as being part of being an Air Force MP. So I know the Army MPs all had to get maced and tased and exposed to tear gas and shot with rubber bullets and had the shit beat out of them with batons.
Well, like the baton thing, yeah. Like we only had to like I never worked at a base that used pepper spray, so I never had to be pepper sprayed, right? But when my base got tasers, yeah, I had to get tased. I mean, it technically wasn't mandatory, but it was one of those highly encouraged things where you're like, oh, okay, I see. Yeah, okay, I volunteer.
Yeah.
One of those kind of things.
One of those cool things that you can tell people you did. It's like, yeah, I rode the Lightning. What of it? And I wasn't in the commission of a crime.
Like what they did with me is they hooked one prong to one ankle and another prong to my other ankle. So the voltage went up my leg, across my waist, and then down my other leg again.
Ooh.
Yeah, that didn't feel good at all. I would never voluntarily do that again.
Yeah,
Never.
the MPs that I kind of hung out with towards the end of my army career, they got like the full on like shot with the barbs in the back, and
That
had
didn't
like,
sound fun either.
yeah, had to have a couple of guys like catch them on the way down. So yeah.
I mean, the thing is that the electricity connects the prongs, so the closer they are together, the less painful it is,
Hmm. Yep.
right? But if they're spread out, like with me, they hooked up both my ankles, and it had to go all the way up my leg and then all the way back down my leg. That was very painful.
Yeah, I can imagine that going like up your leg and through your grundle and then down the other leg. Probably not a fun experience.
Now, everyone I know that's done both says that pepper spray is worse.
Hmm.
I wouldn't know because I never actually got pepper sprayed. I mean, I went through the gas chamber in basic, but that's not really the same thing as being pepper sprayed. And that shit stays on you too. Like you go to take a shower later and it's in your hair and just washes down into your eyes.
Yep.
And you just pepper spray yourself all over again.
Yeah, the guys that I was hanging out with, they said, getting tased sucks, but it only sucks for a little bit. Getting pepper sprayed sucks all day.
Yeah, because you get tased and it's like 5 seconds, 5 to 7 seconds of agony, basically.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's after that, it's like, whew, okay, that was unpleasant, but okay, I'm done. Let's go about our business. So yeah, that's not fun. I wouldn't voluntarily do it again. And you know what? I can understand why some ATF officer would be kind of pissed off that some local cop decided to tase him. But you know what? Again, like I said, ATF shouldn't exist, and the less ATF agents that are willing to do their job, the better. So you know what? I'm oddly okay with this.
Yeah, and this is the sort of thing that spreads, so I doubt that many other ATF agents are going to be too keen on heading to Columbus, Georgia to enforce any of their bureaucratic diktats anytime soon.
Well, exactly. And especially these days with all the draconian and, dare I say, fascistic lockdown orders that a lot of states are implementing these days, it would be it's very good for local sheriffs to defy local lockdown orders due to COVID-19, especially when such orders are blatantly anti-science and blatantly anti-logic and have no intended effect other than destroying small businesses. It's kind of funny because a lot of these people, they claim to be they're for the science, don't you know? But the orders they implement are as anti-science as you come. Now, what am I talking about? Last week we talked about, well, really for the last 2 weeks, we talked about California's new shutdown order that basically shut down all outdoor dining in California. Now, there's no restaurants can be open at all except for takeout and delivery. But a recent admission by California officials states that there really is no evidence that transmission of COVID-19 happens in outdoor dining. That the entire point of shutting down these restaurants is just to take away options for people to leave their houses. Right? Their goal is not to stop the spread of COVID-19, it's to keep you in your house. And I'm going to read you from this article in Reason Magazine. The article is titled, California's Health Secretary Concedes There Is No Empirical Basis for the State's Ban on Outdoor Dining. It goes, this week, the Los Angeles County Judge ruled that a local ban on outdoor dining at restaurants aimed at reducing transmission of COVID-19 was not grounded in science, evidence, or logic. Around the same time, California Health and Human Services Secretary Mark Galey admitted that the same thing is true of the state ban on outdoor dining that currently applies to all Southern California, including Los Angeles County. Galey said that the ban, which is one of many restrictions that are triggered when the region's available ICU capacity drops below 15%, is, quote, not a comment on the relative safety of outdoor dining, unquote, but is instead aimed at discouraging Californians from leaving their homes. Quote, the decision to include, among other sectors, outdoor dining and limiting that, turning to restaurants to deliver and provide takeout options instead, really has to do with the goal of trying to keep people in their homes, Gailey said during a briefing on Tuesday. He noted that, quote, we have worked hard with the industry to create safer ways for outdoor dining to happen. So this is basically the California Health Secretary admitting that he has no scientific or logical even basis for shutting down outdoor dining. Now remember, California decided to make these draconian measures as a way to stop the spread of COVID-19. And I'm sure many of you have heard the argument that if you're not for these measures, you're anti-science, right? Oh, you don't believe in science. I believe in science. I'm a good leftist. I believe in science and you don't, and this makes me a superior human being. Well, here we have an admission by California Health Secretary that there is no scientific basis for shutting down outdoor dining. It's not even a logical basis. The goal here is to simply prevent people from leaving their homes. And the thinking is that the more things they shut down, the less places people will have to go. So if they got nowhere to go, they'll stay inside, and boom, you have your lockdown orders. Right? Of course, this doesn't simultaneously apply to places like Walmart. This doesn't apply to big businesses. This only applies to small businesses. This only applies to places like restaurants and gyms and theaters. Small businesses run by individuals with that can't afford to simply shut their doors and not open, especially this time of year when they have employees who rely on their jobs for Christmas. This is the Christmas season coming up. And they're essentially telling all these businesses, hey, you need to lay off all your workers 2 weeks before Christmas. And we're doing this because we care about your livelihoods. That doesn't sit well with me at all. It's fucking ridiculous. And these people should be absolutely ashamed. And the fact that Californians and New Yorkers and Pennsylvanians and Michigonians, I guess, Michiganders,
yep,
Lake people, it's amazing that these people put up with it. Absolutely ridiculous. I mean, the guy admits there is no empirical evidence that states that closing down outdoor dining in California helps at all. No evidence to back that assertion. But because they have a knee-jerk, they just need to feel like they're doing something, they decided to do this and just fuck over every business over in California.
Yeah, it's this weird, like, damaged chromosome type of person that feels the just unending need to tell other people what to do, and they can't even just like, okay, yeah, we goofed, we're sorry, we had some bad data at the beginning, we're going to course correct now. No, it's like they got to double down on their bad behavior and their bad decisions, because somehow saving face when they look in the mirror is more important than doing the right thing. But the thing is that they're not saving face. I mean, they may be saving face to themselves, but they're so ensconced in their own little echo chambers and their own little bubbles of their glad-handing yes men and sycophants that surround them, that they don't see that everybody sees that they're full of shit. And so they just keep like doubling and tripling down on their bad decisions because they think that nobody else can see it.
I don't understand how they wouldn't be able to understand that everybody else sees that. I mean, right now they are gathering signatures in California to recall Governor Newsom, and it's looking like that campaign might actually be successful. Like they'll actually be able to hold a recall election to get rid of that piece of shit. And I hope, yeah, in California.
Yeah, well, here's the thing about California and tyrants like like Newsom, even if they go through all of the proper measures that it would take to do a recall election, the laws and the regulations and just the out and out better than you attitude that the politicians and bureaucrats in states like California takes is, even after a properly done recall campaign would go forward, they would just move the goalposts and be like, oh, nope, you needed 10,000 signatures, now you need 15,000. Or it had to be filed yesterday. Well, when did that pass? Today. You know, and they will, and Governor Newsom will stay in office, and he will likely win re-election because people have the short-term memory of a goldfish.
I mean, that may be the case, but the simple fact of bringing up a recall election and gaining signatures for that in itself says something.
It does.
Right? And I mean, it's kind of like how the Democrats brought up impeachment charges against Trump, even though they knew there was no chance at all of getting a conviction in the Senate. You know, they did it so that Donald Trump would have the stain of being the third president in history to be impeached, right? I mean, that's part of the strategy.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and it works both ways, though, because if you bring up a recall campaign, that says something. Not every California governor has people out in the streets trying to have a recall election to get rid of them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they probably all deserve it, but Gavin Newsom deserves it more than most because he's a special kind of spineless dickhead.
Yep. Although, to be fair, it does take a whole lot of backbone to pull some of the shit that he does just openly and brazenly.
I mean, it really doesn't, though. I mean, yeah, you would think that, oh, yeah, he being so open with his hypocrisy, that takes, you know, that's kind of ballsy, but it's really not. He doesn't actually fear any consequences.
Right. He's not using his own backbone. He's just leasing the backbones of the people that will inevitably have to guard him with their lives.
I mean, do you remember when he was caught at that dinner for a lobbyist of his at the swanky steakhouse in California? Do you remember the sycophants that came to his defense in the wake of that? It's like, oh, he's a good guy. We need to forgive him. He made a mistake. It was the same thing when Nancy Pelosi got caught getting her hair cut, even though she supports shutting down salons.
Right. Well, I'll even go one better. Remember at the beginning of this, Gavin Newsom was like the number one guy who was up there banging the drums about how people need to quarantine themselves, stay in, and don't travel, and blah blah blah. And meanwhile, he's tweeting this nonsense out from his wife's family's ranch in rural Montana.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
No, I remember Lyman was pretty pissed off that was happening.
I mean, a lot of people have done that. And is Andrew Cuomo's the CNN host?
Chris Cuomo's the host.
Okay,
Andrew's the governor.
Okay, so Chris Cuomo, he got COVID-19. Do you remember this? Because he got COVID-19 and he was like broadcasting from his basement every day, like, oh, look at me, I got COVID. Spotted with his family visiting a home of his that was under construction. Mm-hmm. And when some random dude confronted him about it, he got all pissed off at this guy.
Yep.
Like the mayor of Austin. We talked about this, I believe it was last week.
I was just about to say something. Stephen Adler last week. Yeah.
He made a Facebook Live video telling the residents of Austin to stay home from a vacation home in Mexico.
Yep. Vacationing in Cabo.
Andrew Cuomo, governor of New York, telling everybody that they're not allowed to have Thanksgiving family celebrations. Meanwhile, he's planning on having a family celebration at his home with his daughters and elderly mother. See, the rules don't apply to these people. I think it was the mayor of San Jose. Same thing. telling all the residents of his city not to have family celebrations. Meanwhile, he's having a family celebration at his brother's house. Another example, a bunch of legislatures from Oregon, Washington, California all went to a seminar in Hawaii after telling the residents of their states that they're not allowed to travel anywhere. So it's just example after example after example of politicians making rules that ruin the lives of the people in their states, but not applying them to themselves, revealing by their actions that they don't really believe in these lockdowns.
Right. Yeah. And the thing about it is that when these politicians are out there and they are espousing these things like lockdowns and mask mandates and all this stuff, other stuff that they then in turn get caught violating, it's not that they're hypocrites, it's that the initial push to enforce these things is a signal to the people above them that I am an obedient little worker and I will follow orders. That's what it really boils down to. They're just telling the people that are in charge of them that you can put a public health mandate that you got to hop down the sidewalk on one leg to prevent COVID, and by God, we're going to tell people that that's what they got to do.
I believe it was the lieutenant governor of Michigan, sycophant for the governor over there, who stated that they're judging the effectiveness of their lockdown orders not by how many infections happen in their state, not by how many hospitalizations or deaths that happen, but on how well the citizens of their state comply with the orders. So according to them, by their logic, if cases skyrocket, if thousands die, if millions of infections occur and hospitals are overrun, but people comply with the lockdown orders, that's to be considered a success. Meanwhile, if the opposite true, if you have no more COVID cases, nobody's dying and the hospitals are fine, but there's widespread non-compliance with the lockdown orders, then that's to be considered a failure.
Yep.
This is the logic of government.
Yeah, it's the tale of two states with Florida and New York, when everybody was praising Cuomo's COVID response, even though he had the highest numbers of deaths in the country and the second highest number of deaths per capita, second only to New Jersey, which is, like a distinction without a difference. And people were like ragging on Florida's governor, even though he had very few deaths and very little impact on his state. So it's this continuation of 2020's main theme, which is media gaslighting. Believe us, believe the experts, don't believe your lying eyes.
I want to show you a couple pictures of just how ridiculous some of these the lockdown rules we're having. What you're looking at right here is a requirement. So some schools want to continue having their school bands meet and practice, but they're afraid of the spittle coming out of wind instruments infecting everybody. So what they're doing is requiring this is a flute and it's covered in a plastic bag so that the spittle can't escape it. And here you have a French horn player wearing some crazy looking glove over the end of her instrument in order to stop the spread of COVID. I mean, and the flute player's wearing a mask with a hole in it as well. So very fun stuff. This is the kind of the absurdity that you can expect from the COVID Karens these days. None of it makes any sense.
No.
But they're going to continue virtue signaling this way until everybody complies with their orders.
Another story that I heard is that a high school wrestling team was told that they can have wrestling matches, but the contestants can't shake hands before the match.
How does that make sense? Like, do they understand what wrestling entails?
I think not.
It involves It involves sweaty bodies rubbing up against each other. I mean, a handshake is the least of your concerns.
Right.
Like maybe they're thinking like a WWE type wrestling match where they're
Yeah.
not actually wrestling. They're
Yeah,
just
but
kind
those
of
guys are like spitting beer on each other and hitting each other with steel chairs.
kind of reminds me of that wrestling. That
Wrestling.
South Park episode where the wrestling teacher wants to teach actual wrestling, but all the kids think that wrestling is WWE. He's teaching them the wrestling, like, dude, this is super gay. Yeah, what? This is gay. Then where's the real wrestling? Dude, South Park's the best.
Yeah, they really just haven't lost their touch over the years.
No, absolutely not. Okay, so there's a whole we talk about lockdowns and we bitch and moan about lockdowns every single week. What I want to talk about this week is the revelation that all that Hunter Biden shit that we were being told was Russian disinformation just a month ago. It turns out it's probably all true, like every single bit of it.
And so
the
much
media
worse.
and the media was lying to us, lying to our faces, like we all knew this entire time. But it does feel kind of good to be vindicated in that. So apparently, not only is there an investigation into Hunter Biden that was initiated by the FBI, but it's been going on for 2 years. Like this isn't something new, right? All these revelations that came out in his laptop. Yeah, the FBI knew about that, and they were investigating all that. This has been an ongoing thing for 2 whole years. And when the story started to broke right before the election, every major media outlet in the country was telling us this is Russian disinformation. This is all a hoax. There is no evidence to back it. There is no truth to endure it. In fact, we feel so confident in that we are going to prevent this story from even being shared. Like Facebook banned the link to the original New York Post story, and Twitter banned the New York Post Twitter account.
Yep.
Like they were so confident that this was all a big lie. But of course, we know that that's not true. They weren't confident that it was a lie. What they were confident in was that the story, if allowed to get out there, and if people were allowed to believe that it was true, would damage the possibility of Joe Biden winning the election. So they pulled out every stop they could. They downplayed it. They ignored it. And when they were forced to talk about it, they would call it a Russian hoax. Because that's the old standby, isn't it? Yep. Whenever information comes out that you don't like, just call it a Russian hoax, and poof, like magic, half the country believes you.
Yep. And to kind of add weight to that, a recent poll that I've been hearing about on a few of the political podcasts that I listen to said that upwards of 30% of Democrat voters who voted for Joe Biden never even knew about the laptop story or the kickbacks or any of it at all, had heard absolutely nothing about it. And of that 30% of the Democrat voters, half of them would have voted differently if they had known. Once the person polling them said, well, this is what was and everything, the Democrat voters were like, holy shit, I would have voted for Trump or voted third party or not voted at all. 7% of Democrat voters would have swayed the election.
See, and this isn't to say, oh man, I really wish this could have really helped Trump win, and I really wanted him to win, because I know that you prefer Trump, but I don't really care which one of these losers won. But it does show you that what we were saying about how the media is no longer going to treat the president as an opposition to be, to be fact checked and to be criticized, that they're going to treat President Biden and Vice President Harris with kitty gloves. Yep. And not scrutinize anything they do. This really just proves that point. The days of media scrutiny of the president are over. They're done with. That's not going to be a thing anymore.
Right. Yep. That is the only reason why I think that, from a libertarian standpoint, Trump was head and shoulders the preferable candidate out of these two, is because no matter what he did, there would be a microscope over every single action that man would take for the next 4 years. He wouldn't be able to pass gas in the middle of the night in bed without some fart sniffer from CNN coming over to see if he had broccoli that night or not.
Well, not only that, but the blatant false stories that they put out there with anonymous sources that never get revealed and never get verified. That it's not just the stuff he did that got reported; it's blatant lies.
Yep.
That were put out there with no verification and no facts. I mean, remember the entire Russian hoax story that went on for 3 whole years. That was a giant nothing burger the entire time. And if you remember way back in January when those impeachment trials were going on, I know it's hard to believe that happened this year. There was an impeachment this year, and that's like not even the top 10 of stories that happened this year. But yeah, if you remember back when we were back then, we barely even talked about the impeachment because we both understood it was bullshit from the very beginning. Not even worth discussing because there was no factual evidence to back any of it. And yet that didn't stop the media from running wild with crazed allegations that all turned out to be false. Yep. I mean, you remember the freaking Russian Pissgate story that got reported? Yep. That Trump was having Russian hookers pee on him in a Moscow hotel.
Yep.
Yeah. Newsflash, that didn't actually happen. That was completely false and unverified. But did Twitter go around banning people for spreading that? No. Did Facebook ban the link to the original article that appeared on BuzzFeed? No. None of that happened. Did you see that little blurb that Facebook is putting under everything right now, saying, "Oh no, we fact checked this and it turned out to be true"? No, did that show up? No.
I'm loving the screen grab copy pasta of political posts with that blurb underneath of it, and then screen grab it with the new blurb underneath of it, and then just I've seen them like 16 deep now. It's crazy.
It's absurd. And like, after the election, come November 5th, I remember we came here in this show and I said, you know what? I'm so glad I'm not going to have to see any more of these little Facebook reminders to vote. But instead, now I get, see the information about the election results on every fucking political post on Facebook everywhere.
Yep.
Like, oh, thanks. That's about the 1,000th time I've seen that. Thank you, Facebook.
I think they got the point that people are aware of what you want us to believe. You know, that's the headline story, and we're all aware of it. You can't escape it, Facebook. So I think they're starting to take those stupid things off. And I saw another post today, a meme that said that if we were wrong, their propaganda would be unnecessary, or something like that. You know, it's just more gaslighting, more beating you over the head with it. Like, no, this is the story. This is the story. Tell a lie. Tell a lie, make it big enough, and tell it often enough, and it will eventually become the truth.
It annoys me that these big tech platforms are no longer simply places where you go to see what your friends are saying, to see what people are thinking, blah, blah, blah. Facebook is actively inserting their own ideological biases into their algorithms and making sure that you see what Facebook approves of. Mm-hmm. Like, they're inserting that into everything. And that goes for Instagram, that goes for Twitter, that goes for YouTube. Like, YouTube has decided to ban any videos that are skeptical of the election results that happened this year. Now, it's funny because their standard is that you're not allowed to question the results of historical elections, but the present election you're allowed to question. But That only goes through until the electors certify the election,
Yeah.
which happened just the other day, I believe. So now it's a historical election, not a present election, even though it happened last
Yes.
month.
Yeah. It's insane because they're saying that you can talk about the election, you can talk about election fraud, but you're not allowed to say that election fraud was the reason that Joe Biden became or got elected. And it's like, again, this is a distinction without a difference. You have to like parse your words and say things in a certain manner to avoid getting the algorithm strike. But if that standard was applied universally, CNN would not have a YouTube channel.
No, they would. A lot of these mainstream media outlets wouldn't.
Because that's all they've done for the last 4 years. Oh, Russia committed election fraud. They bought $100,000 worth of Facebook ads, and that somehow swayed the election. Listen, motherfucker, if you had your opinion on who to vote for president changed by a Russian bought Facebook ad, you shouldn't be voting. Oh no, Hobbs, you can't say that. That disenfranchises people. Yes. Yes.
I don't think of it as disenfranchising idiots. Think of it as double enfranchising smart people.
Yep.
That's really what we should want. We should want people who pay attention to politics and know what's going on and know about the candidates and the issues at hand. We want them to vote.
Right.
We don't want fucking retards off the street who don't know a goddamn thing, but know that Uncle Joe Biden is that guy from all the memes they saw back in 2016. Yeah. Right? Like, oh yeah, I like those memes. I'll vote for Joe Biden. Speaking of which, I wish those memes would still a thing. You remember like the senile Joe Biden memes?
Like licking the ice cream cone. I don't even know who I am, Jack.
That's a real. I'm talking about like the one where he's looking longfully out the White House window.
Yeah.
You remember those ones?
Yeah. I don't understand the obsession that a lot of people have with trying to get more people to go out and vote. I think that if I know quite a few people that don't vote that say that they don't vote because they are not educated on the issues and they don't feel comfortable going in there and making a decision like that. And those people are the real heroes. They're the ones who can admit to themselves that their opinion is not fully formed and they should not have an opinion on the matter. Now, I have fewer and fewer people like that every single year as everything in this country is political and there's that whole get out the vote drive and everything. It's that very Soviet mentality. Eventually quantity becomes quality, and that I think is kind of the driving force where they're trying to get when you're 16 years old. Jesus, I was drinking natural light when I was 16 years old. Gross.
Yeah. I don't think even 16-year-olds should be subjected to that kind of ridiculousness. But back to the Hunter Biden story. Do you remember way back when this first broke, there was that letter by former intelligence officers who all got together and signed this big letter. And we talked about it on the show, saying that the laptop revelations had all the hallmarks of a Russian disinformation campaign. Now, the funny thing is, all these former intelligence officers, surely some of them were in the FBI during the last 2 years when there was an active investigation against Hunter Biden. I can only assume that one of them at least knew about this active investigation. And I would bet that a lot more than one. knew about this, knew that this wasn't Russian disinformation. Because if you remember from that story, and I read it here, that there was no evidence whatsoever that it was Russian disinformation. Like they said, it has all the hallmarks, but they didn't have a slither of evidence to support that accusation. It was pure fantasy, is what it was, right? And we called it out at the time as pure fantasy. Like, you really expect me to believe you when you say this? Turns out, yeah, I was completely 100% right in not believing, intelligence officers. I mean, when in doubt, don't trust the intelligence officers. They tend to have an agenda and like to use their positions of authority to cudgel you into going along with whatever they want. Now, usually what they want you to go along with is a war. So, yeah, very easy to say no to that. But when they're telling you that, oh, the douchebag drug addict son of a political candidate that you like, he might be dirty dealing in a few places, and his daddy might be getting a cut. Oh, when they tell you that that's misinformation, oh yeah, go ahead and believe that.
Yeah.
And these are the same intelligence agencies, by the way, that were actively trying to undercut the Joe Biden's political rival, Donald Trump. We're actively attempting to undermine him this whole time. And isn't it kind of funny? Isn't it kind of funny that during the entire tenure of Donald Trump's presidency, for 4 years, we got nothing but leaks out of the White House? Leaks here, leaks there, leaks everywhere. There's whistleblowers left and right. Nothing that happens in the White House stays in the White House. But this 2-year investigation into the son of Joe Biden, that stayed quiet for a whole 2 years. Not a single leak there. That didn't get leaked out, and the AG Barr knew about it too and didn't say anything. So all these accusations people have been leveling against Barr, that, oh, he's just a Trump sycophant, he's just doing whatever Trump says. No, if that was true, he would have told everyone, yeah, there's an investigation going on here. And here's the thing, there's no reason why they couldn't have said that there's an investigation going on. I mean, they came out and revealed that this month. Apparently last month was too soon in the investigation. They weren't ready to do that, but this month they were, apparently. Right. Or on the other hand, they knew it would damage Joe Biden's chances of winning the presidency. And since they didn't want Joe Biden to lose, they held on to that and made sure that didn't come out in the public until a month after.
Yeah, and call me crazy. I think it goes a little bit deeper than that. I think that they held on to it because not only would it damage Joe Biden's presidency, but I think that it would damage pretty much like 90% of Washington, 95, 99% of Washington, because if Hunter Biden goes down, he's going to spill his guts on his dad. And if his dad goes down,
well, he'll just get suicided.
That'll be a little too on the nose, I think. Hunter has an unfortunate cocaine overdose.
No, yeah, that's more likely. I mean, everyone knows how those cocaine addicts are.
Yeah,
just having cocaine overdoses left and right. I mean, what are you gonna do?
Exactly right. It's there. It's a cover your own ass. With President Biden in office, it'll be the end of it. The investigation will stay low key. Anything that comes out will be swept under the rug. Maybe some fall guys will do 6 months in a posh minimum security jail, and that'll pretty much be the end of it. But if they had let Donald Trump get back into office and he found out that they had this information for 2 years and sat on it, I mean, that's why Bill Barr is not the AG anymore for the next 30 days that we have left of Donald presidency. Is he's probably hoping that the new acting AG is going to just blow the hinges off of it. And I hope he does. But a lot of people end up going to jail for this. I don't think it's going to happen. In fact, I know it's not going to happen. But a guy can hope, right?
The children of politicians do not go to jail. That's a basic fact of reality. These people protect their own. They're not. Joe Biden is not going to see his son rotting away in a jail to be Epsteined. That's not going to happen.
Yep.
I mean, another element of this is maybe they just feel that it's unnecessary at this point to protect Joe Biden. Because here's the thing. The left, they don't like Joe Biden. Nobody actually likes Joe Biden. Joe Biden supporters don't like Joe Biden. They settled on him. He's kind of like Mitt Romney was for the Republicans back in 2012, right? They tried everybody else, and everybody else flamed down. They're like, okay, Mitt Romney. Except in this situation, the person they settled on is old and senile and doesn't know who he is. So he gets in there, but he nominated the perfect SJW identity politics candidate. Right? She ticks off everything that corporate Democrats think leftists want. Right? She's a woman and she's black. And to a corporate Democrat, that's all the heart left wants.
It'd only be
Like,
bonus if she was gay, but she's not.
if only she was gay and transgender. If only the she was really a he. That would really bring things together. But yeah, that's corporate Democrats honestly think that the hard left identity politics wing of their party, that all they really care about is that Kamala Harris is black and a woman. Like they don't seem like just brush under the rug all those innocent people that she kept in jail for nonviolent drug offenses. Just ignore that, or all the parents she went after for truancy violations. We don't have to focus on that, or the fact that she's a fucking cop. Yeah, that's something that endears him to the hard left. But to corporate Democrats, or those who run major news organizations, those are in the holes of power in Washington, D.C. To them, Kamala Harris is the perfect olive branch to the far left. And since they don't really like Joe Biden anyway, now that Joe Biden did the one thing that he was meant to do and defeat Donald Trump, they no longer feel the need to hide this anymore. Right? And if Joe Biden is forced to step down as a result of this, oh no, boo-hoo, cry. Okay, President Kamala Harris.
Yep. And I think it's very funny that you're bringing up the olive branch to the far left. Is that there was between some of Biden's cabinet picks and Biden and some BLM activists, and it was basically, I'm president, now you shut up. I don't need you anymore. And
yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
That's exactly Joe Biden's attitude. And you know what? That should be his attitude. I mean, that the corporate Democrats are just using the identity politics in the far left as a vehicle to defeat Republicans. But do you honestly think that people like Hillary Clinton are these identity politics radicals like AOC and Bernie Sanders? That's not who they are. Like, even AOC and Bernie Sanders are very different people, because Bernie Sanders doesn't really go into that identity politics stuff. He's more your typical old school socialist.
Yeah.
Right? Like, old school Marxists didn't give a shit about that identity politics thing. That's a new phenomenon. Right? And the old left didn't really have that. They were more about the working class and the proletariat and the workers' revolution and shit like that. That's Bernie Sanders' language. People like AOC and the Squad, however, are very different from that. They're all about identity politics, right? That olive branch that Joe Biden and the corporate Democrats reaches out to people like AOC, that doesn't work on someone like Bernie Sanders, because Bernie Sanders is about socialist policies. That identity politics stuff isn't really his thing. It works on people like AOC and the Squad because, one, they're dumb enough to accept it, and two, they do care about that identity politics shit.
Yeah, that's something that I've said on this show a couple of times before. Fair that Bernie Sanders kind of, the old Marxist left engages in is socialism that the socialists ostensibly found out didn't work in America. It worked in Europe, and especially worked in like a lot of the older old world systems of governance, where you had like noble families and whatnot, because you had these stratified classes and castes that went back hundreds of years and numerous generations. But when you get to America, America is it's the wealth mobility is very, very fluid in this country. So they realized that the class warfare wasn't going to work in this country, because anybody with an idea and drive could come from nothing and be a millionaire within a year. And it's true. 80% of millionaires in this country are self-made. They're not old money. So they realized that the class warfare shtick wasn't going to work in this country. But the one thing that there were a lot of live wires and fractured areas in this country that they could try to drive away from class warfare to race warfare, and engaged in the identity politics in this country in order to classic divide and conquer.
Yeah, I do think, however, that old school Marxist argument is gaining more fertile ground in this country. And there's a lot of reasons for that. I mean, just think about it. There's a lot of reasons to make fun of millennials, but here's one thing that millennials do have legitimate grievances against the system as it's set up. And these are grievances that libertarians agree with. Take the student loan crisis, for example. Now, we may have different interpretations as to what caused it exactly. Like a socialist Marxist might say it's because of greedy universities and greedy banks and greedy greed and greed and greed, right? That's the typical reason given by socialists for the high cost of college in this country. Now, libertarian would counter that and say, no, this is due to guaranteed student loans that are guaranteed by the federal government. This is essentially injecting cheap money into the system, incentivizing universities to to expand their operations, to build enormous, facades to attract students to them. And if you raise your fees, that's just more money in your pocket. It's all guaranteed anyway. And all these people have been told since birth that if you want to be successful in life, you have to have a college degree. Any college degree will do. And so people fall for that.
Yep.
Right? Like, there's 18-year-olds fresh out of high school, don't know any better, fall for this stupid bullshit that their parents fed them, and use the cheap money given to them by the government in order to pay these huge college fees and go hundreds of thousands of dollars into debt. And then they graduate and find out that was all a lie. That wasn't true. That great future promised them, that house with the white picket fence that their parents had, that's not waiting for them on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
And they get pissed off about it and think, you know what? The only solution to this is bigger government in order to solve this problem.
Yep. And ironically, the reason that we're having a kind of stagnated amount of wealth mobility in this country, and how millennials are falling short of the American dream, is because of an increase in government involvement in things like the student loans and in the housing market and all these other things, not a lack of it. And more socialism is only going to exacerbate the problem. It's not going to alleviate it. And they just don't seem to understand that, because they're falling for this flowery language that these socialists use in order to make it seem like, oh, it's not your fault. It's not the government's fault. It's those greedy capitalists out there taking all your money and hoarding it in banks and swimming in it like Scrooge McDuck.
I do think that it is valuable for libertarians to remember that a lot of these grievances that people have are real and legit, right? I mean, they like people who went hundreds of thousands of dollars into debt at the age of 18 have legitimate grievances against the system as it's set up. What they have, however, are incorrect answers to the problem. right? They believe in the Bernie Sanders types that just tell them that bigger government, more government is going to solve their problems, when in fact that is exactly what caused the problem in the first place. But the system as it is and the lies told to younger generations for decades essentially stole a lot of people's future from them. And you know how dumb people are at the age of 18, right? They do stupid things, believe stupid things, make stupid decisions. And unfortunately, this is the one area in life where you are allowed to take hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt at the age of 18. Right? No other circumstance would you be allowed to do that. You could have the most fantastic business idea ever. No bank is going to lend you hundreds of thousands of dollars in order to do that. But because these loans are guaranteed and you can't file for bankruptcy in order to get rid of them, banks have no risk in lending an 18-year-old hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's a no-lose situation for them. The only person that loses in this situation is that poor sucker of a kid that takes out that loan. So it is a rotten system. It is a diabolical system. It is an evil system. An evil system set up and perpetuated by the federal government.
Yep. And here I am over here with my $300 a semester trade school associate's degree, machining stuff for a living and doing pretty well for myself, supporting my family of 5 people on my income alone. Golly.
Yeah, and I drive a garbage truck and bitch and moan about the cold.
Well, we're kind of out of time here. There was one more story that I wanted to get to in the beginning, since we were talking about an ATF agent. I figured that we could also talk about how the ATF is just out there making shit up again. And
what you mean the most pro Second Amendment president of all time, his ATF is doing this shit?
Yep.
I'm shocked.
Yep, I think that the ATF. Well, I mean, Donald. Let's not kid ourselves. Donald Trump was no friend of the Second Amendment. At best, he was different towards it, and at worst, he was hostile in certain areas. But I think that the ATF is sensing that a Biden administration is let them go completely ham on the Second Amendment, and recently with their crazy bullshit with the pistol braces that they keep flopping back and forth on, and now they've raided Polymer 80. If you don't know what Polymer 80 is, they make mostly Glock clone 80% pistol frames that you can buy, and you can put a few finishing touches on it, and then you can assemble Glock OEM parts or aftermarket parts or whatever, and you can have an unserialized Glock clone handgun that is completely legal for you to own, so long as you're not, a prohibited person, and you don't intend to sell it. Polymer 80 was selling what they call a buy, build, shoot kit, which included an 80% frame, a jig, which you would put the frame in for all of your milling work and drilling work, a complete set of drill bits and end mills in order to complete this 80% frame. The only thing that you would need to buy in addition to it would be the go in it, the slide, the barrel, and all the internal parts in the magazine. No, the buy, build, shoot kit came with all that stuff too. So you basically just have to, surfaces, drill a few holes, and then slap everything together, and you've got a Glock style handgun. Well, the ATF of the blue, since Polymer 80 has been selling this kit for years, just out of the blue decide that, hey, this is a firearm. Crazy how. And Polymer 80 selling these things through the mail without an FFL transfer, and in some cases to prohibited persons, and in some cases across state lines into California, constitutes breaking the law. And so they raided Polymer 80. They got a few customer records. They knocked on some doors and confiscated a few pistols from a few people. But now Polymer 80 is fighting it and refusing to comply with customer record subpoenas. So we'll have to see how this goes.
Aren't the ATF the same bastards that burned all those kids alive in Waco?
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd think they would have learned their lesson about raiding people after that. You know, if only they would have followed through and just abolished the ATF back then, this shit wouldn't happen. But who am I kidding? They probably would have just replaced it with another alphabet soup organization.
Nope.
Yeah, absolutely ridiculous. So I guess we're gonna wrap it up there. We've been talking for an hour. Remember, everybody, if you Christmas is coming up, if you want some Road to Liberty merchandise, go to road2liberty.com and check out all the great, fantastic, wonderful, brilliant, the best ever shirts you've ever seen. They're fantastic. You love them. I love them. You love them. You all love them. But yeah, here right on screen you see a few of the shirts that we have. They're all available for $20 at Rhodes, the number 2 liberty.com. It really helps us out. Bring this show to you every week. So yeah, go there and check out. I think Boot Girl shirt is our number 1 seller right now. It's a Hawaiian. It's one of those Hawaiian bobbleheads with Nogs and an AR-15 held high into the air, proudly defying the ATF and Gavin Newsom.
Yeah, it's Hawaiian hula girl, it's Statue of Liberty, it's Boogaloo all rolled into one nice little composite image.
Absolutely fantastic. And if you want to listen to other episodes of Road to Liberty and any other episodes on the Think Liberty Network, go to think-liberty.com. Remember, we're on Facebook. You can see all our videos on Facebook. That's probably the best place to see, because that has our full library of every show we've ever done, going back to 2016 on there. So go check that out. What else? We got our YouTube channel. We're building our YouTube channel up. Go there. Make sure you subscribe and press the little bell icon to make sure that you see these episodes when they go up live. We're on Instagram. We're on Twitter. We're now on MeWe as well. Go to find our Roads to Liberty group on MeWe and help us grow it. Right now, it's around 20 members, but we want to make that a lot bigger. So if you're one of these guys that doesn't like Facebook or doesn't like Twitter, doesn't like how their censorship policies work, yeah, head on over to MeWe and join our group and check it out. All right, that's going to be it for us, guys. We'll see you next week, 9 p.m. Central, another episode of the